I would like Darren, if you could comment on communication with the counselor, uh, confirmation emails to record approvals, the BMA appointment date, and maybe the updates, the weekly updates.
Sure. So, again, strong market you're dealing with now, and then there's those houses that don't sell. So similar to like a policy, some policies, some corporate policies do not allow, we get 2 BMAs, by the way, I don't know if we want to talk about that. Sometimes you do a BMA. We do actually pay for a BMA if we know there's no opportunity. And then we hope to, if that home comes into inventory, give that relocation agent the home. So that's our intent. Every once in a while, something happens where it doesn't happen, but that's not our intent. So I want to thank everybody. By the way, these are really intense forms. I'm sure you guys, every time you get one, you're like, oh great, I have to do one of these again. So, and you know your peers out, the appraisers out in the market, they get more money for a similar form. We rely on the BMAs. I can talk a little bit about this. Your opinion is really, my team looks at it. I have a pre-marketing staff, not for 100% of my clients, but they look at the 2 BMAs and they look at the differences if there are any. And then there's people that are more positive about the home. We try to give pointers. So the analysis of what to list at, we give great recommendations. Again, tied to corporate policy, unfortunately, some of the corporations allow your customer to list as high as they want to. So I think your challenge in a better market is how do you not appear to be too pragmatic and keep within, we already had the statistics police, Karen, tell you that you're inching on your way up to 5%. And I think the form, I've been at ERC over the last years, we've tried to make the form a little better. I've said put in the comments a range or you'll be, so you put your pragmatic number in the BMA form of what you feel the house will sell for, you'll be right on that. But if you feel like it's a hot market, the house has a brand new kitchen compared to the comps, you could also list the house or put a comment in it to say, if this is a competitive listing opportunity, I'd be comfortable or we'd be comfortable listing the house at X price for 2 weeks or for 30 days, and then we'd have to revisit. So there are some ways to manipulate the form, and if that does come up, I would check in with Shelley if you have that type of house. So that's one pointer I would say. And then the more unique a home is, and then sometimes you do have to be really harshly pragmatic, like if someone has dog odors, you have to say it in a way that's not harsh, but you could say, oh, we've got some feedback from showings that this is a dog odor, So that's your best. Blame it on the comps is one of my favorite sayings, because as you're listing that house, if I have a weird analogy that a house is a lily pad on a lily pond near a waterfall, every time you look at that house, some of the other lily pads are falling off. So that house 30 days in, some of the comps sold, some of the comps are still there. There's houses that don't have a lot of comps, so you have to continue to remind people. So like think about the modern homes that are now coming back in vogue, but in a colonial neighborhood, you have that Frank Lloyd Wright inspired 80s house that is not as appealing or won't appeal to 100% of the buyers. So you want to continue to bring that up. So characteristics, like a 1-bath, I mean, we never hear that, but it'll probably come up tomorrow now that I mentioned it. But in a 3-bath, 1-bath is never great, so you want to try to find the comps or talk about the perceived value of what that is. So statistics, but comps are my favorite thing because my biggest challenge is when we get into inventory, Rob and I, how did in this hot Dallas market and California, knows how the hot markets, why do we even have this house? Like, you need to explain, Darren Wagner, why we have this house. So I can talk about how the appraisers overbought it, which isn't so popular because we manage that relationship. But the best thing is to talk about the houses down the street, the houses in the neighborhood, and talk about why the house is now worth maybe a lower price.
Right. Okay. So does that sound familiar to everybody? I know that sometimes we get BMAs in, and then I look at the CMA, and then I'll say, oh, this is the range, but why are you going over that range? And then just like Darren was saying, if you explain that, the reason why we're going, because you feel, because you're the experts out there, you feel that it will sell for this. Then put that in the comments, and we'll submit it, and we'll just go from there. So good job on that. Thank you, Darren, for sharing that. And also, how important is it for the counselors to have a BMA appointment date?
Very important.
Because sometimes I'll get calls from the counselor saying, hey, did you guys reach out, or do you have the appointment date? Then I'll look at e-relocation. It's in there, and you tell me about it, but please don't forget to let the RMCs know, because they need to do their report.
Our biggest, and this could be a customer service issue, is a transferee saying, I'm going away on vacation. They block you, and then they don't want to tell their employer that they blocked the appointment. So you want to make sure, you over-communicate back to Shelley, and you try to get in as soon as you can with that transferee, but you make a note of it, so that delay was not your fault as the agent. I mean, I know that's a rare occurrence, but every once in a while, people will come back and there will be a delay.
Right, and then another thing about the communications, the updates that are due, some are weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Those are very important to get in. We have lost listings because the agent has not been keeping the counselor updated with the reports. So that's how important that is.
Yeah, and it's a good point. We're one of the 3 providers that deal with government business. So contractually, 2 of our government agencies, which we've had a lot of volume from, they need 2-week. We literally have to get those back in 14 days. So as an agent, if you're thinking, I really want to give some creative feedback here, I want to talk more, it really is important that you just get them in on time, even if it's very similar. Think about 2 weeks sometimes in certain markets in the winter, there might not be really any changes, but or 0 showings, but even 0 showings is a data point. So,
right, and then also when we're submitting the BMA, it is due to Ebby Halliday within 18 hours of your appointment time. You can close your ears.
Wow, you guys are really harsh.
And the reason why we do that is to stay competitive, and we want to over-exceed our RMC's expectations. So that's why we have the 18-hour deadline for the BMA to get into us for review. So.
And actually, just to talk to that, we say some of our contracts are 1 business day or 2 business days, but when the weekend kicks in, there's always like a lot of drama about getting the feedback. So
right.
18 hours I guess that works for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Darren. Okay, so.
You never told me that, Karen.
Okay, and also submitting offers in totality, we are getting calls from the consultants saying that you guys are piecemealing some of you are piecemealing the contract in, like the contract and without the addendum or without the sales disclosure, and they can't even make a decision on it unless they receive the whole full packet. Okay, so just remember every time you submit an offer to submit it in its totality so that they can review it, and then we can get a response as quick as possible. And then Darren, we talked about it earlier, how sometimes the RMCs may have a couple of days to respond back. So,
actually, I think we want to make sure that you understand that we're like the mother and father that are far away that want to bless this offer. So you want to tell the buyer's agent, who's really excited that their buyer writes the offer, that this is a corporate listing and it may take 2 business days to respond. And please tell your customer that's not because they're not considering the offer. It's just tied to people that have to approve it. Tied to the data point of, we've had a couple of failures this past year where people were excited about an offer, and you know how your clients have to say, oh, it's cash. And if they tell you that, then just make sure you write it as such, and then we find out they have a house to sell. So I think you manage that better than I could even tell you, but just make sure as you're going to present it, you want to make sure you tell your customer, hey, I'm so excited, I have the offer written, but I need these other pieces. Pre-approval, we talked about also. Right. Getting a pre-approval is really important. Your market is really very important. So with the multiple offer scenarios, a pre-approval is different than a pre-qualification. I think the banks are being better about this, but you never know with the lender. We had a couple of failures where this has come up in my whole career. They go out and buy like an Escalade before they close. So just remind your customer, you can do whatever you want. It's the American dream. Once you close, there's probably things you can do that you shouldn't do. But remind them that they shouldn't be doing anything, applying for new credit, and also that their lenders will do the pre-approval, but they will run their credit again right before closing. So they're kind of off the hook, the lenders, unfortunately. But that's a very uncomfortable conversation with the client when we have that type of a fallout.
Right. And make sure to, oh, go ahead.
For a year or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I'm sure it was a great deal.
Right.
And you need the Escalade to go to Costco.
And don't forget on the pre-approval, the asset, income, and credit is verified on that pre-approval to make sure all that's taken care of. So.
I mean, and also in your competitive markets, what I've seen, let's say you have people coming in, I have told and I've coached and I've bought some competitive bids myself personally where I will volunteer my credit rating and I will get my lender or my bank to say, here's where I am, and I even provided my credit report. So if you feel like it's a really competitive, they're going in, which again, 39%, that if they can do anything, write a letter, anything that makes the offer. So our challenge is when those offers come in, the transfer is like, yeah, I got the, I want to accept the 780 offer. I had the house listed at 7, and that one has it's like a really vague offer. And then we can review the offers, and we have more data. We can encourage the transferee to say, look, this is a real offer. It's a pre-approval. This is a great buyer. They have nothing to sell. Here's a letter from their bank. Here's a letter from their mortgage company. So whatever you can do.
All right. Now moving on to inventories. Again, you mentioned blame it on the comps.
So I know we are your toughest customer because we take your money. So now we're your toughest customer because the houses that don't sell, I think Tina and I were talking about this when your market started getting hot, that need the R&I. So now we're going to make you be a flipper, but we're not going to pay you for it. So my group, over the last year, we have done about 20 kitchens. We've done granite or quartz, and we have painted cabinets and changed hardware and done stainless steel appliances in a house that needed an update. So every house is different, but don't assume we won't do that. And if you have a house that is dated, that won't sell, if you get, I'm sure you manage your contractors well, but a good granite bid, that will negate a customer coming in and saying, I want 40 grand to redo the kitchen, when you say, oh no, actually here's a bid for X amount for granite. We've had people pick out the colors. I've had a couple of scenarios, the DC metro area and strong markets where we started doing a flip. We listed it low. This is a house that we got in inventory, so I was working with someone like Rob. And then we started the work, and people saw what we were doing, and they wanted the work done, but they knew they couldn't do it themselves. So they wrote a high offer and bought the house. And then the house down the street, the people bought it as is. So it's an interesting dynamic. But managing your contractors personally, I'm lucky I'm not in the paper for managing my contract at home because they're tough. They're a tough breed to manage, but getting multiple bids. But there's probably nothing we won't do. And other third parties, if you need a new roof, again, someone's going to come in and anticipate a roof that's functioning that looks like it needs to be replaced in a 25-year-old house. If you get a good bid from someone you know, then that's a helpful tool to have, whether you do the roof or not.
Wouldn't it be awesome if the RMCs would all paint and replace carpet when we say? That would be super awesome.
I'm known for doing it.
Right.
People think I like to do it.
Okay, and then professional photos, virtual staging.
Yeah, actually, that's a great thing. We look at your house online. So my own corporate client is my own company for the government homes. I'm not certain you all know this, but we take title and we own them. So my team, myself, I talk to my own client, my own company once a week, and they're probably my toughest client. So go online when you can and look at your own home. A lot of times the Zillow subscriptions, something will happen where the old photos from the former broker will pop up. So I'm sure Shelley can help with that if needed. But make sure you look at your house online. We do virtual staging on a lot of homes, and the professional photos, make sure you, even for these, we're taking your money, half your money in the referral, you're better off to have professional photos. And virtual staging has been really good for some of these homes. So you hear oftentimes too formal of a plan, not open enough, and then you have the open floor plans, and people don't know what to do with the furniture when they walk in the house. So it's almost like the reverse of what you would want to have. So with the photos, you stage it, and you can even leave the photos if you like on an easel. So what we're seeing with the younger buyers, they love to push the house on Facebook. I had a couple of buyers recently, I heard in one of our markets, where their friends voted on which house to buy, and they bought the wrong house, but it was a prettier house online. So I think and think about how hot your market is. When you're selling, it needs to look really good, as good as the house next door. I saw this amazing marketing department back here. I'm sure some people have some great ideas, but but continue to check Zillow and Trulia. I call it Zulia. They're owned by the big NRT company, because somehow some of those subscriptions fall off, and you don't know it, and it's embarrassing. So try to check on your house frequently online.
Right, and I think that happened to us before when we update MLS and then automatically update Zillow, but all those other websites are still showing the old photos, so we have to stay on top of those other websites. So
Yeah, I think if you do Zillow, Realtor.com, we know that's the highest level of accuracy, and they work with the realty community. Then Zillow's, then Trulia, then like Redfin and those other, they're a little tough. But if you know it's out there, then if you can do something to change it.
creative marketing. Anybody have any creative marketing ideas out there that maybe can help each other out? I've known one agent actually that does an open house, the wine and cheese thing. That seems to be good. Does anybody else have anything else?
I sometimes do the live videos on Facebook.
Live videos on Facebook. Oh, I've seen that. And that's worked out pretty good for you?
It works pretty well because you get a lot of people looking at the home because they're interested to see what is
Social media,
this
right?
video and where's it going.
It's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I've also seen in some of the markets. So it's funny. I look online at all our houses. So my own Facebook page pulls up the house in Arkansas, and you see it. So recently we had a house that's kind of a '60s colonial competing with '80s colonials, and it just we changed the photo. We did a split photo. One thing I've been seeing now is, let's say you have a house that has a great kitchen and the curb appeal's average. You do a split as the first photo. So it really is just a collage maker that the marketing people can help you with. So I'm on MLS, I'm looking at Realtor.com, and up pops the great kitchen and then the front of the house, instead of just the kitchen or just the front of the house, which is average. So I've seen split photos and then 3 photos. That's kind of a freebie. Look at your competitors and think about what your competitors are doing. You see the higher end luxury homes, there'll be some trends. The Facebook thing is a great idea. One of my tri-state area relocation companies in New Jersey, which we talked about, which was not a lot of positive news for the economy there. But when they have a showing, they pop the house up on Facebook and say, I'm showing 123 Park Lane, so excited, and then they get to push it out. So if you're kind of thinking about that house, it just gets it out there. Watch the HTV shows, because you see what the younger buyers, what they like. It's very interesting because we all have our own little bias. Like recently I went into a house and it was my house 15 years ago, red dining room, greens, and I've sold my house every 2 years. I'm not normal in any way. But the broker's like, oh, this is beautiful, I love it. I'm like, this is a $3 million house competing with a builder 2 streets up. Everything is gray. We know, guess what, 5 years, oh, it's gray, it's old, So that something will be new, but just make sure you look at your comps. Painting is a big thing that we do. In fact, Harold's here, one of my compatriots, and I was looking at, this is agreeable gray, and we recommend this color. And whether you notice this, I'm going to look hideous on the videotaping because of this blue lighting, but this is daylight LED, which is a very popular lighting, and it's bluish. So certain colors don't look great. The gray behind us is most likely Shoreline by Benjamin Moore, which is a true blue. And I've had some feedback. So I've actually been telling brokers, and what I hear now in this great market now with you guys is somebody, I'm trying to think of what I can pick that won't offend anybody, in Oklahoma says to me, oh, we don't do that color out here. We do candlelight white. And I go, well, your buyer's not from there. It's a relocating person. So you're going to do agreeable gray, which, by the way, this is agreeable gray, but it's a grayish, so it's a beige color. But these things do matter. You don't have to do the whole house, but it's been amazing, the transformations when you paint. And I hope your corporate clients, my competitors, listen to you and you remind them. Again, show them the comp that has the neutral and say, hey, don't get offended. Here's our comp. It's all neutral. It's staged. It's virtually staged. So if you push another listing, whatever their own issues are. We have one client that said they'd never paint or stage, and we've done 2 houses out of 20. So it was painful, but we did it, and then they sold. So
Awesome. So, okay, so the last thing is the assumed third party will not be amicable to buyers' inspection demands.
yeah, this is interesting. So we talk to a corporate client when we get a sale. So your buyer comes in, or on the pre-marketing side, you're leaving, and then we all know that the purchasers, when they get their home inspection done, they'll rip the house apart, basically. So I think what we're trying to promote is telling the buyers at that price. So let's say it depends on the pricing. So for someone, you sell it at retail, you want to be a little softer about it, but once you start negotiating down, you start saying, okay, at this price, the house is cosmetically as is, you're welcome to do your inspections. You don't want to bias or block somebody from doing an inspection. But when they come back and want a 10-year furnace replaced that's working well, you have to remind them, well, for the price that you paid, this house is, was taken into consideration. So our worst scenario, which comes up often, is going back to the client and saying, remember we sold that house at a loss for $250, well, now the buyers want $8,000 to go forward. So that's just painful. Sometimes there are some legitimate things, but the best you can do to say as is and try to kind of enforce it. I had a recent house, this is a funny but maybe sad story, where we had a really beautiful sun porch that was a 3-season room, and the broker put in the MLS comments 4-season room, which I'm not certain what that is, so my team got a chuckle about it because that's really square footage. Like a 4-season room is the house. So the buyer took that and wanted us to upgrade. It was a Mitsubishi wall air conditioner, and they wanted to be upgraded to a Mitsubishi air conditioner. I didn't even know about this, but that also heated. It was a heat pump built in for $5,000 because we said it was 4-season room. So we ended up, and that was a lower price. These people got the house for a great price. We ended up adding to the selling price the $5,000 too. So that call to the client was very easy because I said, oh, we netted this, but that took a lot of coaching from your side to the buyer's agent to say, hey, this is really unreasonable, and MLS doesn't have to be 100% accurate. So anything, if somebody does want to improve the home, you want to try to articulate through it. You can tell this is my life. I'm talking a lot about this. It comes up all the time. We sell a house once for price, then we sell it again during the inspections, and then sometimes during the walkthrough. It happens. Or if the lender underappraises it. So just do the best you can to help us out, and also manage your contractors that are tough. They're tough to do that. So, and we appreciate all the hard work on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
We're good.
Darren, could you speak to, since you also manage inspectors, and maybe some of the agents would like to Q&A, we get voluminous inspection reports from the buyer. I know you've addressed this sort of, but could you go into a little more detail?
Sure. I think there needs to be an expectation. So when you're working on our side, and then the buyer's agent, that's the easiest thing. That this is the most common scenario. I would coach the buyer's agent to say, oftentimes, so in our disclosure, you'll know what level of inspection we ended up getting, and you can just say to the buyer's agent, hey, this is a third-party relocation. It's already been inspected. Your buyer can do inspections, but I can tell you this particular corporate. If you're going to rip it apart and ask for cosmetic things, they're not going to be addressed. So please review what has been inspected, and then throughout the whole process, you manage it. We have had some scenarios where the buyers have asked for things that are pretty unreasonable, and it depends on the house. Whether I think you want to frame that with you don't agree with the buyer asking for it, but it is a request, and it's a. I had an issue with a townhouse in D.C., fee simple, where a gutter was clogged. The clogged gutters create so many issues. Came down by French doors in a walkout basement. Water came in, and the buyers were first-time buyers, and they wanted like a moat put around the house for $20,000. And I ultimately went back and I said, that would be a disclosure issue in the future for you, and I can give you. So I found a contractor through my broker that would guaranteed once the gutter was done and they did something to the French door, that they would guarantee it for a year. So sometimes getting creative with that is important. Home warranties are interesting. We promote home warranties. We were working with American Home Shield for a specific relocation product, and then the buyers didn't trust our home warranty company. It was kind of interesting. They had their own, and that is tied to the relationship with their agent, I assume, and maybe that agent working with that inspection company. I'm sorry, with the warranty company, but we are very open and willing to paying the warranty. So if during the negotiations, it's an older home, the homes that are going to, that is something you should ask for, and then remind that buyer, hey, you're already covered. So if the furnace does break down, the third party already paid $750 for the home warranty, you're covered. So they're not going to do both. So I'm a big fan of promoting home warranties. I'm still working with American Home Shield to get one that would work for everybody, but it tends to be a local thing.
Do we have any other questions for Darren?
Right here. Catherine? Catherine.
I'm actually getting a lexicon one right now.
Okay, I apologize.
No, it's that.
And you're so nice to me.
Stephanie
I appreciate
Imanoff,
it.
I think her
Oh,
name
yes,
is.
out of our
She's
Cincinnati
awesome.
office. Yeah,
First
she's really
of all,
good.
she answered her phone over the
Yeah.
weekend on her cell, and we put the deal together within
Awesome.
4 or 5 hours. So hats off to her.
Okay.
On your amendment, your rider, it says that when they present the repairs, that basically the choice is to either offer a credit or terminate. So you're saying in this rider that you will not do any physical repairs, it's only a dollar value, or is that
We
flexible?
prefer a dollar value because, and how you sell that buyer on it is, then the warranty stays with them. It's just an easier process, and you all know the scenarios where you open up something and it's more than you think.
Sure.
So that's our preferred, but again, if a buyer is like, I'm not buying that house because the last house they bought had a furnace issue, just continue to ask the question. Depending on
But
what we're doing.
The rider says, though, it's a credit, so I just want to
Yeah.
verify
Yeah,
that
no,
you
it's
guys are
definitely
open to
preferred.
that.
No, we're open if it keeps
Okay.
the deal together. Yeah, I
Okay.
think we're trying to set the stage for a credit is easier, and works out better. It depends on. So, the thing about a buyer with a VA that we're giving a lot of closing costs. If something comes up, obviously we'd make that exception.
Sure.
So.
I think we can all talk through that. It's just what the written word says
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
little,
Well, I think we want it that way just so you can promote it. But should it come up, you'll say, okay, well, it's an exception. You frame it that way.
Okay.
I'll see if we can get them to do it. It's a reasonable request. They prefer a credit because of how I sell on the credits, and I have a couple of war stories I could share with you, is that and it is a factual thing that when they do the work, that the warranty stays with them on the repair. So, but we were open to doing something to keep the deal together.
Okay, and then another question, just a broad question, maybe not necessarily to your company, but if a transferee wants to control when they move, like let's say they want to wait till summer, and but they've got their package now, is there a way, or do you make it a practice to let the agent know that their benefits are for 6 months? Because sometimes they don't share that with you, when you're making your presentation and or when you're doing the listing agreement, and we don't know if
Sure,
they have a
yeah.
6-month window or a
Yeah,
1-year window.
Yeah, the common number is 1 year, 1 calendar year. So I think you, as soon as you hear they want to delay, and you have the counselor like Stephanie Imhoff, you just say, hey, just so you know, here's our plan. Are you okay with it? She may volunteer they only have 6 months or they only have a year. So just volunteer what you're hearing, and if should that come up with the transferee, it's just a point of clarification. You're not telling on them or something. But always confirm back. That would be the best way to handle that.
But if the transferee doesn't tell you that, but the counselor knows it, is that something she could say, well, that's not going to work because?
I think you just need to say when that scenario comes up, say to the counselor, are you comfortable with me sharing this and discussing it? Is there a range that,
Okay.
yeah, so then you kind of cover yourself. That does come up a lot, though. Thank you.
When you were talking about repairs, I actually think I've had a bigger problem with the sellers when you all go in and do the pre-inspection, all of a sudden being required to do something that in an open market sale, especially in our market, they would not have to do. So more so from the buyer's standpoint of requesting things, I think it's more because when your inspectors go in, they're very nice. They're not going to be confrontational with them. And they're like, oh, it was great. They said our house is so pretty. And the next thing they know, they get this page report
Sure,
of all the
yeah.
items. So I have a harder time with that and kind
Yeah.
of taking them off the ledge at that point than obviously when we get to a buyer's because they've done it all by that point.
Yeah,
But
I think your best approach, so in our world, there's two different, there's probably more than two, but the simplest way to think about it is there's the home inspection, like you're talking about, that does a really detailed dive, and that third party, and we have it's really the client has been burned on some houses that things have been missed. They over-inspect on a scale of 1 to 10, they inspect at a 10, and then your buyer in this market will be inspecting on like a 5, if even that, because they're happy to get the house. So I think if that scenario comes up again, go back to the counselor and say, hey, I heard from my clients, the transferees, they're really asking for a lot of extraneous things that I don't feel that they would need, that in my opinion, in our market today, they wouldn't have to do, And if you are comfortable in saying this, saying it can be disclosed, because now we have this inspection report, but I can tell you it doesn't have to be done. So what a smart solution for that is, and I can speak to my company, is we could hold back some money from the transferee, and if that sale falls out, or if that amended buyer, so during the amended value process, we own the house for probably, I would say, the recent 10 to 14 days, and that makes that a tax-protected transaction. But if like home walkthrough come up, then we have that money should that buyer change their mind. You're being a good advocate of the transferee, so that's a great thing to do. So I think you just want to share your knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything while we have Darren here?
Over.
So can you talk about listings, lump sums, and sellers not wanting to do the repairs or suggesting repairs that we give them before putting a house on the market? I have a client right now, they're trying to pocket some money, and so they've been very reluctant to do repairs.
Well, yeah, I think what's happening, and Tina and I touched on this, on your market is so hot and it's media covered. So it's an interesting dynamic where the sellers are like, oh my God, I'm getting multiple offers. I'm not going to do anything. Maybe they have some history in the past where they had to do a lot more in the house. If you can quantify and say to this seller, I know I can sell your house as is, but I feel the price when you finish the kitchen or replace this dirty carpeting, or say it a little more professionally than that. I think if you spend $4,000 on the carpeting, you're going to get $15,000 back. I'm more comfortable, and then show them the comparable that's done already. What you're having now is, I think your market's slowing down a little bit, and I think there's hot pockets and there's thresholds. So if your customer is that person that in that neighborhood up to 400 is hot, and they're the $480,000 house, they have to be in great shape. So if you blame it on the comp down the street, that might even be a flip. You say, hey, look, this is what your buyer's looking at. So I'll list it for you, but I would feel more comfortable if you did this, and you would get a much better price. That's your best sell. What I see in the market is, I see great houses that are updated, sell quickly, and some don't. But that house will sell. It's just, when will it sell? Yeah. But there's a little bit of greed factor in there. So that's your best way to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you. A hand for Rob and Darren, please.